So I've always thought fasting sounded kind of weird. Like, isn't that just something they used to do back in biblical times? This question ended up leading me to do some research on the topic and trying to figure out, as someone who's really never fasted for biblical reasons. I mean, clearly I have for health reasons. Check out this bod. Let's not put that in the video. That was in poor taste. So then, should Christians fast in the 21st century? And if so, like, why? So that question ended up leading me down a road where I ended up doing my first 24-hour fast. All right, so welcome to the video. My name is Chris of Christian Chris Bradley, and this channel is focused on providing information on God, the Bible, and just Christianity in general to help you in the struggles of seeking God in a chaotic world. So to stay up to date on our latest videos, think about hitting that subscribe button. All right, so I'm gonna be real upfront with you right off the bat, all right? And here's the deal. I am not a fasting expert, like not even remotely close to a fasting expert. In fact, until recently, I knew almost nothing about it, but I spent a lot of time focusing on this topic because I wanted to get a better understanding of it and learn more about it. And what I found is some of the material out there is great, and other stuff is really just awful, y'all. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, how did you go from fasting sounds weird to actually doing a 24-hour fast? That's a great question, by the way. I'm glad you asked. And to answer that, I think we need to start at the beginning with the original question. So should Christians fast, or is that just something for people in the Bible? Well, newsflash, most things people did in the Bible still apply today. Although I probably wouldn't recommend sacrificing animals. That'd probably just get you arrested. So maybe don't do that. All right, so first let's start by defining what is fasting? Like, what does that actually mean? Well, fasting really just means abstaining from food and possibly water for an extended period of time. Now, I think it's important, and there's kind of some different views on this, but I think it's important to understand that there is a difference between fasting and abstaining. So some people say, like, I'm going to fast from social media for the next week or whatever. That's really not, you're not really fasting, you're abstaining from social media, okay? Fasting is abstaining from food and maybe water for an extended period of time, all right? I think that's just kind of an important thing to note there. So should we do it or not? And one of the most popular and I think best places to try and answer this question is Matthew 6:16 through 18. And it says, "And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you." Okay, so the verse is clearly talking about fasting, but does it actually like tell us if we should fast? Well, check it out. In verse 16, you'll notice it says, when you fast. Not like, hey, if you decide to fast, or like, hey, maybe at some point before the 21st century if you fast. No, it just says, when you fast, right? It's basically saying it as a present in continuation of, right? Like, when you decide to fast, this is how you should do it, okay? So I think that on its own almost kind of just breaks it down. Like, yeah, you should fast. Now let me say up front too, I don't think that it's an issue of if you don't fast, you're going to hell. Like, I'm not at all saying that, right? There's a lot of personal things you have to figure out with yourself. So I just want to state that up front. So like, then why should we? Okay, so what are some of the benefits of it? Well, first off, I think it can bring us closer to God, quite frankly. It can really help align our hearts with his. And let me just end this point with this quote. And I took this from Word of the World podcast that I recently discovered. In fact, I'll link it down below. They got some good podcasts and videos. And in Marcus on there, it said, "I will deny even what my body has to have for the things of God," right? So you're willing to deny the fact your body needs food to live, but you're willing to deny that, right, for the things of God. And that's kind of part of that whole like realigning your heart, trying to get closer to God. You're making him the focus, not food. You're abstaining from that, and you're really just trying to focus in on God. Okay, again, I will deny even what my body has to have for the things of God. That's a cool quote. Okay, so I mentioned it can bring us closer to God. Well, one of the ways it actually does that, and this is another side benefit, this is like two benefits, right, is really it leads to more time with God. Fasting leaves you with extra time to be with God. And I know that kind of almost sounds weird. Like, how does that leave me with extra time? Well, for one, what I recommend is if you would sit down to eat breakfast or dinner, use that extra time to sit down and read your Bible and pray and meditate and try and get closer to God, right? Spend some time with God. And really, I think that's what it all comes down to getting that extra time with God and then using that time to get closer to God, right? So really, let's go back to the original question. Like, should Christians fast? I think we pretty much answered that as a yes, right? Because it says when Christians fast, and then the benefits of having that extra time to spend with God and using it to really, truly try and get closer to God, it makes it worth giving it a shot. And really, are there other benefits? Yeah, probably. For you personally, everyone's going to have their own benefits, right? You really won't know all those until you try it. Maybe you gain something more than somebody else. But let me actually just use that to go into my own personal experience and how this first 24-hour fast affected me. So I'm going to be really honest with you. When I woke up, I was really cranky because I'd stopped eating the night before, right? So I'm already like X amount of hours into my fast, and I was really cranky because I knew I wasn't going to eat, and for some reason that made me cranky. And I realized that I wasn't gonna be able to have caffeine. And if you've seen my videos, you know I like to dabble in the energy drink realm. So I woke up, I'm cranky, I went to work, I worked out, which I didn't not want to do. All right, so I still worked out even though I knew I wasn't gonna eat it all afterwards. And then I spent some time with God. And then I worked for a while, okay? And then, as I was working, people had brought in snacks, which made it even more awesome to continue not eating those delicious snacks. Then I had more time with God. Then I went home. I had some time with my family and then more time with God. Okay, so what was the biggest thing I noticed? It was that I was hungry. That's what I noticed. I was hungry. And more than that, I actually noticed that I had not had any caffeine that day. But in all seriousness, I realized that this hunger actually gave me the opportunity to work even harder on having a change of heart and resisting the want to be negative and respond poorly to others, right? Because I was cranky and hungry, and that might not have been the ultimate goal by any means of the fast, but it's still an area that I found I could work on throughout the day. I also noticed as a benefit from this fast is that hunger actually constantly reminded me of God, because I remembered I was fasting, right? And then God started to come back into my mind. You know, when you go to work sometimes it can be so easy to just almost forget about God throughout the day, right? Which is unfortunate. We got to constantly try to remind ourselves. But when I was fasting, it was like constant almost, because I would constantly see people with food or my stomach would rumble or I'd be hungry, and it would constantly bring this back into my mind that, oh yeah, I'm fasting, and it started to make me think of God and all that. And another benefit is I spent more time with God fasting and praying. And I normally right now spend about 45 plus minutes a day in Bible reading and prayer alone, right? Just specifically that. And I found that because I had extra time, right? Because I didn't go sit down and eat dinner, and I didn't worry about food or anything like that. I ended up spending way more time with God. And I obviously also made it a priority because I knew I was fasting and praying. But again, it forced me, or not forced me, but it kept that in my mind. And I ended up spending more time consistently throughout the day in fasting and prayer and Bible reading and just spending that time with God, okay? And I also found that I had I felt like I actually did get closer to God. I had this like deeper insight almost, and just some good prayer time, like some really good prayer time. Not even honestly towards the beginning of my fast, but towards the end, I found that I just ended up in some really good prayer. But with that being said, let me tell you some things I didn't notice, right? Because you kind of get this idea of fasting and people are like, you have some sort of revelation. I didn't. And I bring this up because I feel like fasting sometimes, or especially when I was looking through some of this material, it's almost like there's this assumption that you're going to have this like amazing revelation or something just insane is going to happen. And that's not the case. Maybe you'll have a life-changing moment. That would be awesome. I would love that for you. But what I don't want to see is someone to try a fast and then they're like, oh, well, okay, it was just another day. I was just hungry, right? Hopefully, if nothing else, though, you are at least going to get that time to really spend more time with God and get closer to Him. So with there not being any of these weird, awe-inspiring moments or life-changing moments, will I continue to fast? Is it worth it? Like, yeah, I think so. And I think it's worth it. And I will probably still continue to fast. I don't know exactly what yet. I'm thinking maybe once a month I'll do a 24-hour fast or something like that. I think it's important to remember that fasting, it's a spiritual discipline, right? Just like meditation, just like prayer, just like reading your Bible. It's a spiritual discipline. You might do it once or twice and realize that like, this is not for me. And maybe it's not. Remember, like I said, I don't personally believe that if you don't fast, you're going to hell. Like I don't at all think that's the case. So if it's not helping you grow your relationship with God, maybe you shouldn't do it. Maybe you should find another way, right? Find another way. Because at the end of the day, the bottom line is you really want to get closer to God, right? You want to get changed by God. So that's kind of where I'm at. All right. So in the future, I do hope to do another video, a really more in-depth video on fasting with some more knowledge when I personally have more experience and a better understanding of it. But like I said, I just want to at least share my experiences and some of the benefits that I found. So make sure you click this link up here to see our latest video. Subscribe, by the way, if you haven't already. And don't forget to read your Bible. Don't forget.